Okay, my name is Coding User, and in this video we'll be covering functions. So what are functions? They're just piles of code that can be executed many times, basically. And they can be used for other things, but in principle they are. So the keyword function, and then the name of the function, and then some brackets, and then curly brackets like this, makes a function. Um, Now, the functions have a name, as I said, and inside of this there is parameters. Um, let's say uh, input, and then if we were to use this input, because inside of the function, it's like the parameters are only inside this scope. So if we do input um, plus 2, then we can say let output equal input plus 2. Now here there's something cool about functions, that they have a return. That is basically like if we were to have like you can make it into variables, for example. Um, so that's a cool thing. Um, like you can convert like a function that does stuff into like a response. So it's a bit complicated, but what I mean is we can assign a variable to a function that calculates with numbers, more or less. So we can say let's answer equal, and then uh, we can more say add 2. So instead of name, let's do add 2, and then we do a number, and then it just, if we open the terminal and we do node index or not node dot, we didn't console log it, so if we do console.log answer, yes, it returns 4, because this function like is converted into a like a, sort of like a property, like it's converted into a type whenever we like into a value, basically. So like from it being like code that does stuff into, and if it returns, then it becomes that value. As I said, not exactly, but more or less. Um, you can do many stuff from the functions. For example, you can say console.log. This is a function. If we run it, we get this is a function, and then the output. Because here we do console.log the output. Now we can, as I said, inside the function we can use any code. So we can use for loops, if statements, and variables right here. Um, Now this is like the more like and like this are the basic functions, because they have a parameter that is inside of this. Like it even says it's a parameter. Um, and then this is the name, and then this is the declaration. But you can also use like variables, which uses an arrow function. What is an arrow function? It's like if you were basically, it's mostly used for like functions without names called anonymous functions. Um, but it can also be used with names if we assign that function this into a variable. Now, the arrow here, it's equals and then this, like it's equals and the greater than symbol. Um, this is the parameter. If there's only one, you don't have to put the parentheses, but if there's more, then uh, we can we do need to put the brackets. Now the arrow function is here to say it's a function, and here's the brackets. You can also remove them if like you wanted to make it one line. But yes, like if you wanted to make one line, then you can say console.log hello hello. And then we can use, instead of that, we can probably use the backticks, say inputs plus add, like that, and then we do no dot, it says an error, because add to has already been declared here. It's exactly the same thing, just another way to declare it. So if we do that, if we remove that, not a number. Here, it's one of the things that we get from, since this is like not exactly like declared here, we didn't put a value here, it's not a number. So if we put a value, then it gets 6, and then here its answer is undefined, because no, yeah, because it's like it's returning, like if it's one line, it returns like the one line, so it's gonna return undefined, which it might be an issue. But if you don't want it to return it, then you use multiple lines, or yeah, that's our functions and normal functions. Now let's move into higher order functions. In the for loop, in the for loop video, I mentioned the for each thing that goes in arrays. Well, this is a higher order function. A higher order function is very complicated to mention on like skimming one video, like a quarter of the video, but what I mean is that it's more like a big topic, but in functional programming. Higher order functions, what they do, this is a function, the for each is a function. So if we do, like, let's make a function, call it testing order higher order functions. This is a bit like a long name, so we can say testing higher order functions, like stuff, for example. I don't know. Here it can take in a function, so we can say it takes in the inputs, and then we can say this is usually not used as an input. This is more of a usually sort for like a sorting method, or in this case it for like for the name of the element or stuff like that. Yeah, inside of here we say inputs return input. This might not be in itself a higher order function, but then if we use like a function inside of it, this is another way to write anonymous functions, like functions without a name. Like if we remove this, then this would be an anonymous, which would be used inside of higher order functions. Or you can assign it to a variable, as I said. Here you can run anything really. Here we'd say let's a equal to console.log a, and if we assign the variable, since it returns the input, we can say let's function equal this, and then function function, yeah, just function. It's a error because answer is not defined, because this is still here. Here we get the output, because it's returning. Now there is another way to make a higher order function. If we make a function that makes functions, a function factory, basically. So if we say, I don't know, it takes in a multiplier, for example, just a multiplier. Like let's say it takes in a multiplier. Here we do like more like if we return a function like that with value, so we wouldn't need to use the brackets here, and then we'd say return value times mod. So if we were to do that, I don't think this is gonna like triple, for example, would be the top of 2, no, the 3 actually. If we do triple, and then we say 2, we would actually rather console log it, because otherwise it won't show it in the console, because returning doesn't necessarily show in the console. So here we get that since we made a multiplier of 3, triple, we can take it in as a function, and we can also look at the code if we just get the property. It says anonymous, so you can't really go around it, but in some cases you can. In more of a web development, I think, because Node uses that way, like especially many times in like more native functions. Now, what else? You can use functions to, you can use them like in for loops, you can use them in if statements, you can basically set up a more complex way of like making some code that will be run, like, because here we can make a let double equal top then 2, and then if we do double 2, then it's gonna return that. So here we see that it's basically a function factory. You can also make it more complex, so you can put if statements inside of here, so return certain types. If you can make it different functions, for example, if it takes in a different input, I don't know. You can think of that because it's way higher, like it's way more complex than the what I'm trying to explain. So in here you can also shorten it, as I said, with the one line. And if you really want to be like extremely, you can just do this. Like, you can do it once and twice, which would be yeah, it would be a bit. Oh, I don't think you can. Well, yeah, because you need to. It's like an arrow function within an arrow function. That's a bit funny. Just let's see if it still works. It still works. That's like one line version of the whole thing. Because whenever we don't have the curly brackets and when it's in one line, you can literally just like it returns. So it returns the value that's in the one line, as I explained with the undefined that we got here. Because console.log is undefined, technically, it returns undefined. So that's been functions. Uh, if I forgot something, make sure to comment it down below. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye.